is Valley News Live at 5.
We begin tonight with breaking news. Vaccinations with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine should resume. The final vote was 10 in favor and 4 opposed to lifting the pause on the vaccine. However, the panel members advised adding a warning about the risk of rare but severe blood clots. There have now been at least 15 reported cases out of nearly 8 million doses given in the U.S., and all were among women. 3 deaths were also reported. The CDC says more cases are under investigation, including some in men. The CDC director will have to sign off on the recommendations, and the FDA will have to make changes to the language on the emergency use authorization in order for vaccinations to resume. As we get ready to head into the weekend, we've got snow. It's pushing through the region right now, so let's head over to Hutch to find out who's being impacted at the moment. Hutch?
Thanks so much, Andrea. As we take a look from our home of economy location in Grand Forks, North Dakota, radar shows snow approaching you in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks County under the gun right now, but it doesn't look very heavy. Take a look at the radar, and it extends from near Bismarck and Mobridge, South Dakota, right into the Northern Valley. Most of the light blues that you see on here not reaching the ground, not seeing confirmation on area DOT cameras. But in western parts of Grand Forks County, those dark blues, likely some flakes are flying through the sky. Again, it's not going to accumulate, just going to be one of them nuisance events that makes its way through Northwood here in the upcoming minutes. It's moving at 25 miles per hour, so that leading edge by an hour from now at the 6 o'clock broadcast will be pushing into Grand Forks, East Grand Forks. The 30s have been punching in throughout the day, holding on to some warmth to the south and to the east with some 40s in Wadena County. That's about it. Jamestown also in the low 40s. Tonight in the FM area, north winds, cool, cloudy, and brisk. I don't think we see any flakes here in the FM area, but the weekend looks unsettled as well. We'll have a tale of 2 sides of the coin with some good outdoor weather for us to get out and enjoy, but also some unsettled weather. I'll have all those details in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you, Hutch. A man who was shot in the head in Fargo on Halloween night is now almost fully recovered. We spoke exclusively with Nathan Crawford back in November, just days after the shooting that doctors said should have killed him. The man who shot him, 23-year-old Nathaniel Benton, was caught days later in Wisconsin after officials say he shot at 2 police officers. Tonight on Valley News Live at 6, we'll hear from Crawford, who tells us about his recovery and why he's planning to make a trip to visit Benton in jail. The number of fatalities on Minnesota roads in 2021 hits 100 this week, marking the earliest date that the grim milestone was recorded in the last 6 years. Preliminary figures show 102 people have died on the roads since January 1st. Last year at this time, there were 82 traffic deaths. However, the 2020 figures were likely affected by the drop in traffic due to the pandemic. Of the traffic deaths this year, 40% were speed-related. In tonight's Legislative Watch, Governor Doug Burgum has signed a bill protecting businesses from COVID-19 lawsuits. The new law will ban employees from suing their employers if they believe they contracted the virus while on the job. But it doesn't just shield employers. The bill also applies broadly to businesses, including hospitals, meaning if a patient contracts the virus while in a healthcare facility, they cannot sue the facility for damages. Supporters of the bill said businesses worked hard to provide services throughout the pandemic and shouldn't need to worry about lawsuits over their best efforts.
We know more now than we did then, but we know that North Dakotans were always doing the best they could with the information they had at the time that they were facing these emergencies.
Those opposed to it are concerned that this will let bad actors slip through the legal cracks and not be held accountable for dangerous work conditions. There were reports of COVID breakouts inside manufacturing plants where more than 100 cases were discovered. Governor Burgum and others said the bill doesn't protect businesses if they were willful in misconduct. On the heels of traffic stops that have turned deadly, most recently in the police killing of Daunte Wright, a Minnesota state lawmaker is pushing to change how police officers can make traffic stops. Representative Cedric Frazier remembers the time when he was pulled over at the age of 17 for a broken taillight while he was driving his aunt's car. He says that officers pulled him out of the car and searched it. He was held up for 45 minutes and said he was terrified. The similarity between his story and 20-year-old Daunte Wright's isn't lost on him. They were both young men pulled over for a traffic violation, only Frazier is still alive today.
Absolutely, those personal experiences coupled with seeing what happened to Daunte was that we've got to do something.
A proposal he authored that passed the House Wednesday night would limit when law enforcement is allowed to pull you over for certain violations like these. Studies show that black drivers are disproportionately more likely to be stopped. The Minneapolis City Council is looking at creating an unarmed traffic safety division outside of the police department. According to city documents, it's designed in part to eliminate racial disparities in traffic enforcement. A sentencing date has now been set for the former Minneapolis police officer convicted of killing George Floyd. Derek Chauvin was found guilty on charges of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. He'll be sentenced on June 16th at 1:30 in the afternoon. Chauvin faces up to 40 years in prison. His attorneys will have 60 days to appeal the outcome. 11 months after his restaurant burned down during riots following George Floyd's death, one Minnesota business owner isn't giving up. As Boyd Huppert shows us, he's now operating out of a trailer to make ends meet until he can reopen.
He used to run a restaurant at Lake Street's front door.
Yes.
Now Luis Temé
Very delicious.
serves food
Gracias.
in an alley.
Hola, buenas. Hasta luego. We have to make money we have to do something.
El Sabor Chuchi was Luis's old place, part of a mom-and-pop strip of Lake Street businesses.
I used to clean the tables.
That's Henry, Luis's son,
He used to spend all day there.
who grew up with his dad within these walls.
I miss it, yeah.
All of it gone as Lake Street burned following George Floyd's death.
My friend, he called me. Hey, your restaurant is on fire.
This is what greeted Luis the next morning.
Me and my family were crying when we saw.
Luis had already been struggling with the COVID restrictions that also stole hours from his wife as a hotel housekeeper. Then, this.
He stopped eating. He got really sad because all his hard work.
Hard work instilled in Luis growing up in Ecuador, where at 11 he left his family to work at a banana plantation. Then, at 19, followed his brother to Minneapolis, settling into Lake Street's Hispanic community, washing dishes at a Greek restaurant.
That's why I put gyros.
Learning to cook and aspiring to own
Salchipapa.
his own restaurant. You were pursuing the American dream.
American dream, and actually they come true.
Now the trailer represents Luis's dream,
Gracias.
renewed.
It's helping a lot.
Está bien. Hasta luego.
It was purchased with a $24,000 grant from the Lake Street Council.
Gracias.
Luis parked it behind the little grocery store he opened weeks before the rioting. His market looted, but spared from the fires.
Listo.
90% of Luis's customers are Ecuadorian.
Sí.
They took the loss of Luis's restaurant personally.
Ahí está.
Nelly Lapa is a regular at the trailer,
We support him, to encourage him to build it again.
and Nelly is far from alone. A GoFundMe page started by Luis's nephew has raised more than $100,000. Money Luis plans to use to get out of the trailer and back in a restaurant. He's waiting to see what comes of his old location, and when we talked before the Chauvin verdict, was still leery of more unrest.
They don't feel safety right now.
But Luis knows
No quiere pasar.
the time will come.
You feel good when people are happy, when they eat your food. We want to feel that way again.
To some, just a trailer in an alley. To Luis, a fresh start
Gracias.
on a path forward. Boyd Huppert, Carol 11 News, Minneapolis.
Around the nation, failing to impress a date can leave you embarrassed, but in one case, it landed a New York man in court. A woman who was a match for Robert Chapman on the online dating app Bumble turned him into the FBI after he bragged to her that he was involved in the Capitol riot. Investigators cross-referenced body camera video of Chapman with his Bumble profile picture. He's now charged with 4 misdemeanors. Chapman has not yet entered a plea. Up next, dead butterflies everywhere last summer. Now Moorhead officials plan to talk about the pros and cons of aerial spraying.
Temperatures are on their way down as we have some northerly wind ushering in 30s after highs in the south reached 45 to 50 earlier today. Some snow showers to talk about too. pushing into Grand Forks within the next hour. I'll have hour-by-hour details on what you can expect as your weekend is here. Details are next.